So recently I've been looking to explore foods from my past, or like foods and snacks from my past. It is very difficult because many times I feel like the biggest fraud making all of these Asian dishes for you all. My parents obviously coming from Hong Kong and then, settling in Boston, my childhood was not always filled with just Chinese food. Like obviously it was filled with a mix of a lot of other things. My dad, he had really bad eczema. And so my mom had to kind of cater dishes like according to his skin condition. I always feel quite jealous of some of the people that are like, oh, I'm Shanghainese, I come from Shanghai, I come from Beijing, like these were the foods that I grew up with. And I always felt like, okay, like I'm just kind of this like mash of things. Then becoming vegan later on in life, it's like, okay, like I've had to veganize all of these things, like how authentic is everything? And like essentially I'm making new things with you all the time. So today the dessert that I'm going to make is very reminiscent of Hong Kong and how my parents grew up. I remembered having this dessert as a kid as well, and it's called Bút Zai Go. And it's made from rice flour, essentially. Rice flour, a little bit of sugar. And then you can stick like adzuki beans in there. Some people dress it up by, instead of using water, they'll use coconut milk instead. And what's surprising is how good and just comforting it tastes. There's not a lot of ingredients to it, and what you do is you steam this batter. Your typical characteristic is that there's a divot in the middle because of the rising of the batter when you're really steaming it, and then it kind of like falls, right? So that divot, instead of being kind of like a mistake, is actually a typical feature and a characteristic of it. I heard recently that these types of things are not readily available in Hong Kong anymore, just because it is more of like a street food, very much like what Singapore does, where they're trying to kind of get people off of street food and then move things into actual buildings and centers. You are losing a lot of these people that like used to make it. But I think that there's a huge immigrant population that that went elsewhere, where these are still very much reminiscent, and this is still very much on their minds. So a super easy dessert, super easy bakery item, and I recommend you try this because it is very addictive. Even though you think like, oh, it's so simple, it's like rice flour and some sugar, it's really good. So I hope you all enjoy. So first off, I'm going to melt this raw cane sugar. You can use a light brown sugar if you want, and just keeping a lid on it so that it doesn't lose too much of that liquid. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is make the batter, and I'm just going to do it straight into a pouring cup because it'll be easier for later. We're going to put in some rice flour. The wheat starch is just there to give a little more texture to this dessert. It gives it a little bit more of a chew, a little bit more of a firm bite to it. And of course, it also makes this dessert a little bit more transparent as well. Okay, so you want to go ahead and preheat the containers that you're going to be putting the batter into. If you are using like ramekins or ceramics, then I would just brush these with a little bit of oil first. But what the heating does and the preheating does is it also helps keep the batter from sticking as well. So, and I'll actually put my adzuki beans in right now. It's probably too much, but it's as much as you would like. another good stir before you start pouring. I realized from comments and also a recent cooking class that not everybody likes azuki beans. Not everybody likes beans in their dessert. I always say give it a little bit of try, see how it is. But if you really don't like it, this dessert is fine on its own too, and it's really nice and chewy like that. Okay, so I've just cooled these down in the refrigerator just for a couple of hours, just so that they would firm up a little bit more. It's still somewhat soft. Typically, what will happen is you'll take a skewer, and we didn't oil these, but usually they don't really stick. Well, to this anyways. Okay. So I'm just gonna poke. There you go. Sometimes people do two. Yeah, so it'll be something like this. You can just hold on to it, grab a bite. And that'll be really nice.